Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross and I'm a little bit croaky today, but there's a new Zoroark card that's been revealed, and you know what, ladies and gentlemen, if I don't bring you an analysis of it, I'm just going to feel a bit bad about that. Also, don't tell anyone, kinda like analysing these new cards. It is Zoroark, we are expecting it to be good. Zoroark GX is ruling the format at the moment. Absolutely ruling the format. And then let's not forget that the Zoroark from Black and White was very good, the Zoroark from Breakthrough was very good, and Zoroark Break was very good. So let's just say Zoroark has gone on our expectations higher than most Pokemon at this stage. And as a side note, this one is going to seem like a good Pokemon as well. 110 HP is actually not ideal, ironically, because Zoroark GX will get an easy one-hit KO, but there's also stuff like Golisopod that will hit 120 and get a KO here. The retreat cost of 2 is not ideal, but it is in keeping with Zoroark in general, that tends to have a retreat cost somewhere around 2. Think of the GX, for instance. Resistance to Psychic is again expected, but it's really good because stuff like Garboda is still out there and seeing quite a lot of play. The weakness to Fighting is again expected. Boswell's going to be an issue, both the GX and the non-GX. I know some of you have been saying in the comment section that I should be mentioning one over the other, and you don't always agree on that. To put it simply, both Boswell are great at the moment, both deserve to be considered. Both do a general base damage of 30, both are going to have Diancie Prism Star on the bench, both are going to end up doing 100, so your 110 HP will actually save you a KO here, which is awesome. And being a Darkness Pokemon's kind of good. You've got Devoured Field, which means you'll do an extra 10 damage, and you're hitting weakness on stuff like Bayonet and Dawnwing's Necrozma, both of which are seeing a fair amount of play at the moment. And obviously, non-GX, Shrine of Punishment, etc. And that is actually going to be very relevant when we look at some damage calculations in a moment. So clearly here our translation comes from the lovely David Hochmann. And the first attack, for 1 Darkness Energy. Choose one of your opponent's benched Pokemon and switch it with their active Pokemon. It is a pre-errata Pokemon catcher. Or to put it another way, it is a Lysander, but as an attack. And this is fine. The thing is, it's not amazing. We've seen attacks in the past. I mean, Carnivine is fairly famous for having these kind of attacks that can just pull a Pokemon up from the bench. But then, if you look at the one from Shining Legends, for instance, it's automatic poison. So, the fact that you're just pulling it up from the bench, I mean, look, it's fine. It's useful. And it's a weird situation we're in at the moment, because on the one hand, Floatstone has rotated out. So that means that in theory, it should be easier to strand people in the active, because they haven't got Floatstone to get around it. But then on the other hand, everyone's playing Guzma, which is a switching card. And a lot of people are playing Ace Roller, which can pick up a Pokemon, get it out the active. And a whole bunch of people are playing Tate and Liza, or at least should be, which can be a switch. So we actually have more switching options than before, even though retreating is now significantly harder because we've lost Floatstone. If we combine this with Shrine of Punishment, we have actually got a really fun plan here to just pull up a high retreat Pokemon, strand them in the active, while Shrine of Punishment puts 1 damage counter on each Pokemon EX and GX between turns. That could be a fun little thing to do. Find your opponent playing a high retreat Pokemon that they're not using at the moment, drag it in the active. We see stuff like Lycanroc GX seeing play, but Lycanroc GX has a retreat cost of 2 and cannot attack for a single energy. This could be a fun thing to do. Or you can just buy yourself some time setting up. Generally speaking, this is used to drag something in the active so that your opponent either has to waste time or resources getting it out the active. Maybe for Lycanroc they waste a double colourless. That means they cannot attach a double colourless to attack this turn with a different Pokemon. Or maybe you just waste a bit of time. Maybe you can gain a turn or 2 and Shrine of Punishment becomes awesome. But the main attack here is the second attack. 1 Darkness, 1 double colourless energy. This attack does 20 damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile, up to a maximum of 10. So you can't do more than 200 damage with this particular Pokemon. But you're doing 200 damage for a Darkness double colourless on a stage 1, which is a non-GX that gives up a single prize. I'm totally okay with that. 200 damage for a Darkness Double Colourless is nuts. I mean, if we look at something like Ho-Oh, for instance, which is one of the Pokemon at the moment that just does nuts damage. It's for a Fire, Colourless, Fire, Free Fire 1 Colourless, 180 damage, which isn't actually as much, and it can't use it next turn. This does extra damage, is free energy not 4, and you can use double colourless, and you can use it next turn, and you only give up 1 prize. Yes, Ho-Oh has Kiawe, but that's to support a card that ends your turn, so that's not an ideal solution outside of turn 1 or 2. Now you do have to get Pokemon in the discard. I get that. But once you've got Pokemon in the discard, this is a phenomenal attack. And I expect it to see quite a lot of play. And there's several different ways you can go about doing this. Maybe you just wait till the end of the game. Maybe you just let your opponent KO a whole bunch of Pokemon. Maybe you use something like Swampert, and then your opponent either KOs it, and you lose that amazing attack where you discard a card from your hand and draw 3. But then you got 3 Pokemon in your discard, that's 60 damage. Or they don't KO it and you get to keep that ability for the entire game. Either way, it's a good result for you, and that makes me very, very happy. Or maybe you actively just try and discard. Don't forget we've got Ultra Ball still, which can discard cards. And yes, I know we don't have Professor Sycamore anymore. That has rotated out. That was a really good way of discarding. But in our next set, we're going to be getting Zebstrika. And Zebstrika's got an amazing ability. It's going to see a ridiculous amount of play, whereby you discard your hand and draw 4 cards once per turn. So you get a bunch of Pokemon in your hand, you can then use Zebstrika. You could use something like Professor Realm's Lecture. I'll pop a link to all these unreleased cards like Zebstrika and Professor Realm's Lecture. I will pop links in the description. But that allows you to search for 3 Pokemon with 60 HP or less and put them into your hand. Then you discard them with Zebstrika. Then you've got 3 Pokemon in the discard. And that's just 3, right? Maybe I'll have a 4th Pokemon in hand or a 5th. This builds up quickly. I mean, if you go into the expanded format, you can use Battle Compressor and you're absolutely golden. And I think in expanded, this becomes like an ultra level of good. Because the other thing that needs to be mentioned about this particular attack is that it's for a Darkness Double Colourless. So you can use Double Colourless, but you still need another energy on top of it. And if you go to the expanded format, you've got Dark Patch. And I think in a format with both Dark Patch and Battle Compressor, this takes on an extra level of redonk. This just becomes over the top good when you have those 2 cards. In Standard, discarding a Pokemon is a little bit more difficult. That's a shame. In Standard, getting the extra energy on there is a little bit more difficult. Although I do need to mention Macargo at this point, because an awful lot of Zoroark decks at the moment are playing Macargo. Macargo lets you put any card from your deck on top of your deck, and then of course Zoroark's trade ability will let you discard 1 card from your hand and draw 2, so you draw the card you just put on top of your deck. But in Lost Thunder, we're going to be getting Macargo GX, which allows you once per turn to discard the top card of your deck, and if it's an energy card, you can attach it to one of your Pokemon in play. Which is, of course, ridiculous, because you can now use it to accelerate that darkness energy, and then you're absolutely rolling. I should mention it is only a basic energy, so you can't use Macargo to accelerate a double colourless. So, clearly, Zoroark is going to fit into a Zoroark deck, so you put a few darkness energy in there, because you don't have that at the moment. Generally, they're not playing darkness energy. And then you put in the other Macargo, because you'll be playing Macargo anyway, and this is good. This is really good. In Zoroark Macargo GX fits in nicely, New Zoroark fits in nicely, it's good. It's a great, great attack, and in Standard, it's still a great attack. Harder to get the Pokemon in the discard, harder to get that 3rd energy, but not impossible. Really useful attack. In Expanded, when you've got Battle Compressor and Dark Patch, it's over the top good. It's also really, really nice in Vespiquen decks, because obviously Vespiquen does 10 damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile, but it has no limit. So in the early game, you only need, say, 10 Pokemon in the discard to do redonk damage with Zoroark, and then in the late game, Vespiquen comes in when you've got more. As for the damage here, I'm going to assume we've got 10 Pokemon in the discard, and we're doing 200. You won't always, and you'll have to adjust the calculations accordingly. But 200 is enough to get a Buzzwole. 180, i.e. you've actually only got 9 Pokemon in the discard, that's enough to KO a Rayquaza. If you had a choice band, you're up to 230, and something like a Greninja will be going down very handily. Or if you play a Shrine of Punishment, you're up to 210, and then a Zoroark GX will be going down very easily. With a choice band Shrine of Punishment, you're already doing 240, except a Pokemon like Gardevoir that have resistance. And that's going to add up extremely quickly, given that Shrine of Punishment will essentially keep going. And this is if you're not hitting for weakness. Let's say you're against a Baynet and you're hitting for weakness. You get 3 Pokemon in the discard, you're hitting 60. Add a choice band, 180, with weakness, 90 times 2. Shrine of Punishment takes it out. Dawnwing's Necrozma, you don't even need Shrine of Punishment. If you're hitting for weakness here, this is like over the top nuts good. So yeah, the first attack is underwhelming, but the second attack is great. And look, in Standard, you're going to have issues getting Pokemon in the discard pile, but Zebstrika will really help. You're going to have issues with a third energy, but Macargo will really help. In Expanded, this is over the top good. I'm going to be giving it overall 4 Wassies. And maybe it's a little bit less than that in Standard, and maybe it's a little bit more than that in Expanded, but I think we've got another Zoroark on our hands, which is incredibly good. Apologies about the croakiness, ladies and gentlemen, but come on. There's a new Zoroark, it's good. I needed to bring this to you. And the other important thing to note, this is a second Dark Order card, which we've seen in the past few days, so I think it's safe to say, looks like the set is about to start leaking, and that is awesome. For anyone wondering, these won't be in Lost Thunder, our November set. These will be in our February set, which is as yet unnamed. But now, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like this video, tell me what you think about this card, and do make sure you are subscribed to this channel so that when new cards leak, I can show you an analysis of them. Do make sure you're following on twitch.tv/PTCGRadio for some live action. And if you want to get some bonus podcasts and support the channel, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do just that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.